And a lot of times people, that if you've never programmed a game or created something digitally, you don't realize how much time it takes to do something like this. Even doing just, something as fundamental as one sprite sheet of pixel art can take you a month if you really put a lot of work into every frame.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a reason why it takes you 3 hours a night to do this stuff. And someone whose hobby is like, I don't know, knitting or shopping online, they don't really they don't really understand why it takes so long. And that's how the whole feelings of I don't know.
Bisquick is instant gratification.
Yeah. They get to be jealous, I guess.
So.
Oh yeah.
So then, I guess, with a significant other, I mean, you sort of have no choice but to let them know, what you do in your spare time. But how do you feel when it comes to people that you don't know that well, or friends who aren't into games and stuff, or coworkers, people that you work with? And
I have a very stringent policy myself of not telling anybody at work what I do in my spare time, because it's just how I am. The more the people that we work with, the more they know about you, the more they can antagonize you with. So
generally, the way I figured it out is, I've been around for somewhere in the neighborhood of 33 years and some change, and that's plenty of time to make a lot of mistakes. And it seems like one mistake that I made over and over and over again is telling people that, oh yeah, I make games in my spare time. And it pretty much seems that there's generally a cutoff between like 33 to 35 years old that if you're older than that, you just don't fucking get it. You just don't. It's just outside of that area. You were born a little bit too early. You got into high school, you got out into college and got married, and gaming was never really a part of your life. And I'm still at that age where the vast majority of the people that I work with are older than me. When you're in a technical industry, usually you don't start coming into your own until you hit about 30 anyway, unless you're doing like web development or something where you can get a really easy start. But what I always do now is I just don't tell people shit. I just don't. I just don't even bring the subject up. When they ask me what I do in my spare time, I just say, well, I got some projects I work on, I do some research, and that's just where I leave it.
Because at our age, by the time you're, around 30 and you tell somebody you do something like that, they look at you like you're Peter Pan.
Yeah.
So, well, that's the thing I want to explore. Like, does that make you feel like an ass, an idiot? You just don't want to deal with it, or what?
It makes me feel like they're dead inside. They're happy with their white picket fence. They're happy sitting there watching like whatever sitcom is popular at the time.
Yeah, American Idol.
They're happy watching their kids have snotty noses and run around the yard and fall down and stuff. And if that fulfills them in life, and that's all they need, is just being a sponge and absorb whatever culture's thrown at them, and not actually,
do something.
Do something creative.
Donate something to but
contribute to society.
Yeah. So most people just they're a sponge like that. They don't want to actually contribute to something creative. And if you're not an artist, you just don't understand that.
Don't you feel like you want to, spread what you do to other people and be like, I do this and it's really cool?
I'll put it like this, man. I made a lot of different albums back in the day, and I used to do them under the name Jack Dark. If anybody wants to look them up, you can go to Last FM and go look at Jack Dark. I don't work under that name anymore, but the music I was working on for many years was very esoteric and idiosyncratic, I guess would be a good word for it. And whenever I tried to show anybody in real life that I knew, like my family or like my brother or friends or even like different girls I dated, they are always like, this is weird, And my dad was always like, you're wasting your life, son. You should be
shooting animals.
You should shoot wild animals.
Yeah. Ted Nugent.
Why don't you out shoot wild animals?
Ted fucking Nugent.
Exactly. So, yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from, but there's a reason why we have to create something like the Game Developers Refuge online, so people like us can come together and have a like-minded discussion like this, because people like us are very rare. It's not like 1 out of every 100 people wants to be a game developer or something.
I think a lot of people want to, but a lot of people don't actually pursue it as much as hobbyists.
I want to be a woman, and a lot of people want to be women. But you don't tell other people about that because they just look at you strange.
Yeah. But do you really think that most people try and hide it or feel the same way? I mean, Mike, Kenny, do you agree? Or
I'm just going to jump in and say probably a lot of people will start out and they'll tell a few people, and then after they get kicked in the teeth a few times and go, maybe this is not such a good idea. Maybe I'll just do it and not tell anybody because
Exactly,
because generally I found that approaching people and letting them know that you make games even just as a hobby, I'd say maybe 1 out of 20 people is genuinely receptive to it, and it helps if they're like an engineer or a technical person.
Yeah.
Because these people, sometimes they're doing crazy shit, like they're building boats in their basement or something, and they understand what it means to kind of, I don't know, tilt against the windmill, I guess, because we're making games because we want to, not necessarily because we're going to get paid for it or get rich. So.
Do you think a lot of this is just due to the stigma that comes with video games in general at this day and age?
A lot of it does have to do with stigma, but also it's because it's such an esoteric endeavor. Okay?
Dude, you're such a nerd.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to think that everybody I work with has their own secret weird hobby that they do, but it's just not the case.
Well, it is if it's like fucking goats.
Because I think that if more people had weird hobbies like fucking goats, okay, they would be more open and receptive to. Kenny said that first, not me, but they'd be more open and receptive to the idea of a coworker of theirs having a strange hobby such as developing games in their spare time.
But developing
it's not really the subject matter. It's just the weirdness of what it actually is.
But developing games is not weird. That's the thing.
But it is weird. It is weird if we're just squeezing Mike out here, but it is weird if you live a very, very typical Americana style lifestyle where you go to work all day, then you come home, you eat dinner, you plop down on the TV, and if you live that life, which sadly a lot of people do, the whole thought of making games seems very, very alien to them.
Exactly. It's like saying, "Hey, I make exotic lampshades." It's just So.
The reaction really is usually borderline incredulous.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with where, like, Kenny and I live. We live in the deep south, far below the Bible Belt.
Oh, Jesus.
And we live with a lot of fucking morons. I'm just going to be honest.
Yeah, we do.
So most people our age that live down here, they stopped playing games around like Nintendo 8-bit era.
Oh, the good days.
Because beyond that, the only interaction they had with video games was whatever their kids were playing, and they were buying their kids like PS2 stuff or whatnot, but they weren't playing the games. So, yeah.
So, Mike, how do you feel?
I don't know.
Do you usually tell people you meet that you make games or not? You know what I mean? Or is that something you save until later?
I would say I don't meet people, so I don't have to worry about the problem.
That's pretty good. Maybe doing it right.
Maybe you are doing it right.
And I don't make it a habit, I don't step into the grocery line and say, "How you doing today? Hey, I make games,"
I don't mean like that.
I should try that.
But I mean, when eventually at some point when you know somebody, you find out the kind of things that they do in their free time. And, do you hide the fact that you work on games or not?
No.
Is really the question.
I wouldn't hide it. I wouldn't say that I
flaunt it either.
Advertise it. Yes, I don't flaunt it, but at the same time, if I knew someone and they said, "Hey, I heard you make games," I wouldn't say, "What an unfounded rumor." I'd say, "Yeah."
I feel like I need to start a movement or something and make some T-shirts that's like, "I make games," and people can wear them, and we can be like, you know what, people, just stop being bastards.
But then they take it away from us, man. Understand? If it became like socially acceptable in a pop culture sort of way, I wouldn't want to make games.
Why?
I'm a rebel.
So part of why you. So are you saying that part of why you like to make games is because people give you weird faces when you tell them that you do it? Well, I think that kind of wraps up that topic. We just get weird looks, and we try and not get those weird looks. You know how it is. Anyway, going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about cred.